Something is quietly taking over the global economy, and most people haven't realized it yet. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't demand salaries. It doesn't complain. And once it scales, it could change how civilization itself works. A new kind of economy is emerging. For centuries, economies were built on one foundation: human labor. Factories, offices, farms, construction sites, everything depended on people showing up and working. If humans stopped, the system collapsed. But now something is changing at the core level. For the first time in history, work is no longer limited to humans. Machines are entering the economy, not as tools anymore, but as workers. And that changes everything, from tools to workers. Think about it carefully. A tool helps you do a job. A worker does the job for you. Now ask yourself, where do robots fit? They are crossing that line right now. They don't just assist anymore. They assemble products, transport goods, analyze data, make decisions. They are not following instructions blindly. They are producing value on their own. And in economics, anything that produces value becomes part of the system. That's the turning point, the rise of autonomous production. Now imagine something extreme, a factory with no humans, no lights, no brakes, no supervisors, just machines building machines and other machines maintaining them. This is not imagination anymore. Across the world, automation is already reducing the need for human labor in factories and logistics systems. And as this expands, something massive happens. Production stops being limited by humans. Machines don't get tired. They don't ask for holidays. They don't slow down. So output keeps growing non-stop. Productivity is about to explode. Economists are watching one key signal: productivity growth. Because when machines take over repetitive tasks, output increases dramatically. Automation has already been shown to boost efficiency and economic output across industries, and AI systems are expected to further increase global economic growth in the coming years. So on the surface, it looks perfect: more production, less cost, faster systems. But underneath, a deeper shift is happening: the job disruption problem. Because when machines do the work, what happens to humans? Research shows automation can reduce jobs and wages in certain sectors. One robot can replace multiple workers in repetitive industries. And that leads to a serious question: if robots do the work, who earns the money? The paradox of the robot economy. Here's where things get complicated. Robots increase productivity, but they also reduce human employment in many sectors. So the system starts breaking into pieces. Companies produce more, costs go down, human wages decline. And when wages decline, people spend less. And when people spend less, the economy slows down. This creates what experts call a jobless growth scenario, where production rises, but employment does not. A strange contradiction inside progress itself. Not just job loss, job transformation. But this is not only destruction, it is also transformation. Because the robot economy doesn't just remove jobs, it reshapes them. New roles appear: AI system managers, robotics engineers, automation supervisors, data operators. Automation replaces repetitive labor, but increases demand for technical intelligence. However, there's a challenge. Not everyone can transition easily into new roles. Many workers lack access to training and education needed for this shift, so the gap grows wider. Global shift in power. Now zoom out. This is no longer just about jobs, it is about global power. Countries that adopt automation faster gain massive advantages: higher production, lower costs, faster innovation. This creates a new kind of competition, not based on manpower, but on machine power. And that changes geopolitics. Machines as economic agents. Here's where the story becomes even more unusual. Robots are no longer just tools. They are becoming economic agents. That means they can perform tasks independently, interact with systems, participate in production cycles. Some researchers even suggest robots may one day take part directly in economic transactions. This means something powerful. Machines are no longer outside the economy. They are inside it. As participants, how cities will transform. Now imagine cities under this system. If robots handle manufacturing, delivery, maintenance, logistics, then cities begin to change. Fewer workers commuting, more automated systems running silently, less human congestion in industrial zones. Even smaller cities may feel the impact more strongly because they rely heavily on routine jobs. Urban life becomes quieter, but also more machine-driven. The speed of change. One of the biggest shocks is this: how fast everything is happening. What used to take decades, now it will happen in a few years. Robots are already moving out of factories and into real-world environments, warehouses, hospitals, airports, logistics hubs. Automation is spreading faster than expected. What felt like the distant future is already present. What used to take decades, now it will happen in a few years. Change is no longer slow, it is exponential. Every year, machines get faster, smarter, more connected. Systems that once needed entire teams now run with a few algorithms and robots. Even global supply chains are being redesigned in real time. Factories are turning into fully automated systems. Warehouses are evolving into self-thinking networks. And the gap between future and now is disappearing because the future is no longer coming. It is already here. The shift from labor to capital. Now here's a deeper shift. In a robot economy, value no longer comes from labor, it comes from ownership. Meaning, people who own robots gain wealth. Workers lose bargaining power. This creates inequality pressure because those who control machines control production, and those who control production control society. New economic systems may be required. Because of this imbalance, economists are now exploring solutions: universal basic income, robot taxation, wealth redistribution models. If machines generate most of the value, then society must rethink how value is shared. Otherwise, the system becomes unstable. Human versus machine work. Now ask a deeper question. What makes human work special? Creativity? Emotion? Judgment? Because machines are rapidly improving in all of these areas. AI is already performing complex tasks across industries. And as intelligence expands, the boundary between human and machine work starts to fade. The automation tipping point. Every revolution has a tipping point. Steam engines, electricity, internet, and now automation. A moment where machines become cheaper than humans, more efficient than humans, more reliable than humans. Once that point is crossed, adoption becomes unstoppable. Because businesses don't switch to technology for fun, they switch when it becomes economically unavoidable. And this is exactly where the world is heading now. Automation is already reaching cost levels where machines can outperform human labor in speed, consistency, and long-term operational cost efficiency. At that stage, companies don't choose automation, they are forced into it because survival itself depends on it. And once that pressure spreads across industries, it doesn't stay slow, it accelerates. First factories change, then logistics, then services, then entire economies. And the tipping point stops being a theory, it becomes a global chain reaction. Because when machines outperform humans in almost every measurable way, the economy quietly rewires itself around them. And at that moment, there is no going back. The system doesn't pause, it doesn't slow down, it doesn't ask permission, it just moves forward, faster than anything humanity has ever experienced. A world built by machines. Now imagine the final picture. Factories run by robots, deliveries handled by drones, services managed by AI systems. Humans step back from repetitive labor and machines take over production. This leads to lower costs, faster innovation, higher efficiency, but also a completely new economic reality: opportunity versus risk. So is this future good or bad? The answer is simple: both. It brings massive productivity, new industries, technological advancement, but also job disruption, inequality risk, structural change. The outcome depends on how society adapts, the civilization shift. Now here is the biggest idea of all. This is not just an economic change, it is a civilizational transformation. Because for the first time, work is no longer tied to human effort, production is no longer limited by human capability, and value creation is no longer human exclusive. The big picture: step back and look at everything. Robots replacing human tasks, AI increasing productivity, economies restructuring, wealth shifting toward automation. This is not a trend, It is a transformation of civilization itself. So here's the real question. If robots do most of the work, what will humans do? Because the answer to that question will define the next era of civilization. If this made you think, subscribe and watch the full long video to see what actually happens next.